Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Dana, and if you're looking for a book review on Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore, then you are definitely in the right place. This is a novel by Robin Sloan. Before I get into the book review, I've tried to record this like 3 times, so I'm gonna vent really quick. If you want to skip the rant, you can go down into the description down below. I have the time signatures for everything down there. It'll be quick, I promise. I sat down to do the Strike Back Videothon and this book review last Monday, and God knows why, but all of a sudden my upstairs neighbors started incessantly hammering what felt like they were just taking hammers and just nailing the floor with things, but it sounded random. It didn't even sound like they were hammering nails or anything like that. It was just hammering for the sake of hammering. So I thought maybe they're building an IKEA desk or something like that, so I just didn't think anything of it. I tried to wait for the rest of the day to go by for them to stop so I could record, and it just didn't stop. But the next day I was like, okay, I can record a video today because they've probably done building the desk by now. But no, it kept going. It went from Monday through Friday last week, from about 9 a.m. to about 5 to 7 p.m. when all the daylight is available for me to record. If I do book looks like this, I need like the actual daylight to record, otherwise the look just doesn't get translated onto film the way that I want it to, and then there's no point in doing my makeup. So I was very unhappy with the color quality of my reviews for Still House Lake and Kilman Creek because of the light quality, so I just decided I wasn't gonna do that anymore. So that meant I couldn't record any videos, and I had plans Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I couldn't record during the weekend. And then I tried to record on Monday, and they had started hammering by 11 a.m. We emailed to be like, we weren't notified of any kind of construction that was going on upstairs, and we just want to know when can we expect the construction to end, because I work from home, and my boyfriend sometimes works from home, and he has to do like business calls and stuff like that. So we were like, this is a problem for us, and that we're not notified. We could not plan our weeks in accordance to this construction happening. And they emailed back saying, there is no construction happening. We're like, oh, yes, there is. They were like, well, there's construction happening 2 floors above you and 1 unit over. That's probably what you're hearing. I'm like, no, my neighbors are just hammering on their floor for fun, I think. I don't know. But God knows what they're doing up there. God knows what they're building. But you'd think they were building an ark based off of just how much hammering they've been doing. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. Without further ado, let's get into it. So I tried to do a book look for this twice, and yellow is a really hard color to play with, as you probably saw in my Kilman Creek review. Yellow just does not translate very well into makeup unless you're very smart with it. So I had to study how to do yellow makeup. So this is what I ended up with. Basically, it needed to be more of a warm brown look, and with yellow accenting instead of like a whole yellow look, because I was very, very unhappy with the way the yellow lipstick came out on Kilman Creek. But I wasn't about to re-record the video because there was a whole lot of discussion that went into that one. This one is a little bit easier to re-record because I am not going to be going into like super crazy discussion. So just so you know, this is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to have a discussion portion to this. It's just going to be a spoiler-free review. Now we're going to go into the spoiler-free review. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. So basically we follow this gentleman named Clay. He works in the Bay Area, which is where I live and where I'm from. And he is into tech, and he helps design web pages for small businesses. But because the Bay Area is the Bay Area and the recession is the recession, all the businesses that he works for goes out of business, which happens very often around here, and he has to find a supplemental job until he can find another tech job. So he ends up working at Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. And just as it sounds, it's a 24-hour bookstore, and because he's the new guy, he got the night shift, which he doesn't mind too much because he's somewhat a loner. But he notices that the bookstore, despite not having really any customers, is still running. It confuses him a little bit, and he only has these really peculiar customers who don't buy anything. They basically just check out these really old books on the really high shelves of the bookstore. They aren't titled, they just have weird symbols, and he doesn't know why it is that they're not paying for these books. It's basically about him getting curious and trying to figure out the mystery behind what these books are, what they mean, and why people are checking them out, and that leads him down this like rabbit hole of conspiracy sort of, while also also integrating some technology and Bay Area culture into the book. Without giving too much away, that's really all it's about. So for my spoiler-free review of the book, I think I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but I honestly would downgrade that a little bit to like a 2.5, because 3 is like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's nothing special. But I honestly didn't really enjoy this book. I didn't hate it. I picked it up because a book club that I'm part of read it, and I had picked it up anticipating I was going to be able to go to the club meeting, but it turned out that I had other commitments and I wasn't able to go, so I didn't prioritize the reading, so I finally got around to it. And I'm really sad that I missed the meeting, because I feel like I probably would have seen a lot more in this book. I don't know, it feels like one of those books that I'm like, maybe I just don't get it, but I didn't really enjoy it, like, at all. The beginning was really slow for me, and I was kind of just in this constant, like, I knew it was in the sci-fi section, so I was like, so how does this relate to sci-fi, like, at all? Is it just conspiracy? Because I feel like it needs its own subcategory if it's gonna be conspiracy. But it is, like, pretty steadily put into the sci-fi category on most websites and things like that. I was like, where is this sci-fi I've heard so much about? So it took a long time to get to remotely the sci-fi aspect of the book. That was really annoying, because I mean, if I'm a sci-fi reader and I pick this up because I want to read sci-fi, and I don't mean like space, time travel, whatever, I mean just, you know, the general category of sci-fi, I shouldn't have to wait until the last third of the book to get to the sci-fi part. Otherwise, it should just be designated as like adult fiction, in my opinion. I think this definitely is more adult fiction than it is sci-fi. I get why they categorized it as sci-fi, but I just didn't get the enjoyment that I usually get out of just picking up any old random sci-fi book. I understand the elements of what makes a really good sci-fi book, and I don't feel like those were there, but then again, sci-fi is not my main genre, so maybe I'm not the best person to be speaking on behalf of this book for that. Let's break down the elements of this book. That way I can convey to you what was so, I guess, disappointing about this book. Let's start with the writing. There's nothing particularly bad about the writing, aside from the fact that it kind of, I don't know, I felt like it was too eager to integrate like the atmosphere of the Bay Area. Like, there was a lot mentioned in this book basically for the sake of giving the Bay Area atmosphere, which is fine. I enjoy that because I live in the Bay Area. I love seeing my home represented in novels and things like that. And you don't get to read about too many placed in the Bay Area itself. Sometimes San Francisco specifically, which is part of the Bay Area, but not like integrating all the different tech industries and things like that that we have in this area, which makes it so unique. It is a very unique place to live. It is a very unique experience, which I didn't realize until I started traveling around and staying in different states for a couple weeks at a time, and realizing just how unique having so many prominent companies having their headquarters here. In case you're not familiar with the Bay Area, basically what it's known for is being the tech hub of our country. We have most of the major tech companies' major headquarters, or first headquarters, they're like motherships in this area. Companies like Yahoo, Apple, Facebook, Google, they all have their major headquarters in this area. And we have a ton of other companies that are lesser known. We have a lot of graphics card companies. We have a lot of famous cloud companies. So it's crazy. You'll just drive around and you'll pass like a big giant Yahoo sign and be like, wow, that's where it all happened. That's the building that makes my emails work, with all the people who make my emails work. So it's really cool, and the type of people it attracts makes for a very rich culture in this area, because we attract people from all over the world. I have worked for a couple of these companies, and I have visited most of them in this area. And it's really fun because every different corporate office has its own personality. This is a little tangential, but I feel like I want to give some background as to why I feel the writing is a little bit much. Basically, like, every company kind of has its own personality. Most of them are very kooky, just like you see online, just like you see in the Silicon Valley. It is a lot of giant companies with everybody sitting on bouncy balls, or working at standing desks with treadmills, or having all these crazy little or geeky ornaments around their desks, or just being really strange, socially awkward people. But the cool thing is they're all strange, socially awkward people, so they all get along very well together. And Google's headquarters is mentioned in this book, and I feel like I've never actually toured Google, or worked for Google, and so the Google representation in here could be as accurate as it's described. But the thing is that they describe it so much, and I feel like it's completely unnecessary. I thought that it didn't do much for the book. I thought that it was just kind of mentioned to be mentioned. There's a lot of aspects of this book that did not actually contribute to the solution or the resolution of the story, yet was emphasized like it was building up to that being the answer. And kind of like I talked about with mystery thrillers, I really hate it when just a random person ends up being the killer. Like it was nobody I was actually introduced in the story, nobody that I actually suspected, nobody that I could have put the pieces together to imagine that they were the killer or something. It felt like the solution was a random piece. Like, I don't like the random piece being the answer to the story, the resolution to the story. I like being able to build up to something and having it being gratifying or having it being hinting to something else. But it really wasn't. That's not what happened. The ending was really disappointing for me because it felt like so much build up to nothing. I felt that a lot of the characters were unnecessary as well, and so if we're moving on to characters, I thought the main character was kind of a drifter. I felt like he didn't really have a whole lot of personality in my opinion. He was like the male equivalent of the blah, imprintable, nothing female character that I hate so much. I equally hate the male version of that character. That's what I felt like he was, because everyone around him had such colorful, vibrant, big personalities, and he was just kind of like, okay. Like, he goes through a breakup and he's kind of like, yeah, that like made me sad, I think. I don't know. The female character representation in this book was lacking hardcore, because the very first female character we're introduced is just some wandering person who just wants specifically to read a book about Steve Jobs. And then we don't really see her until later on in the book, and she doesn't really contribute to anything, and she doesn't really move the plot along. She just kind of exists in the book. And so that was like me feeling like, oh yeah, I need to put in a female character in here that isn't a love interest. So there you go. That's your female character. The second female character we meet is one of the only female characters who's in on the conspiracy, and she's kind of like a bumbling idiot. Like, she's the one who isn't fully with the program, and I kind of hate that the only female who is in on this conspiracy that I could read about, at least. There might be other females on this conspiracy that just was not mentioned in this book, but like it bothered me that she was the crazy weird one that kind of is bumbling around and doesn't really know what she's doing, because it just makes me feel like, ah yes, all these other men know what they're doing, and they're doing it very well, you inferior female character. I know that's probably not what was intended, but it just felt like, oh yeah, I still need more female representation. What do I put in there? Oh, kooky aunt, or something like that, you know? And later on in the book, she kind of redeems herself, but at the very beginning when we're introduced to her, I'm just like, really? These are the only two female characters I've read about so far, and you want to make her like the weird one. The third female character we're introduced to is kind of also a background character, like the first female character. She's basically just a landlord. Though we know that she is a very successful businesswoman, we don't get to see that at all. We don't get to see her do her thing, and she doesn't contribute to the plot at all either. She's literally just there as a landlord. She doesn't really do much to move the solution forward or get to the resolution of the book. The only female character that does is, of course, the love interest, and she's just blossoming with personality. And in fact, I thought she was very endearing, and I enjoyed her character a lot. What bothered me is that she was the only female character that I enjoyed, the only female character that was built to be enjoyed, and she just has to be the love interest, and she's surrounded by all these men. I feel like that is very true to the Bay Area, because definitely the men outnumber the women in the tech industry, not because they're not capable, but that's just the bias of the industry. There are definitely a lot more women coming out and coming up in the world in tech, which is great. But we're not there yet with equality as far as ratios go, which will never be perfect, but we're not even close to 50-50. So I guess that could be symbolic to the amount of female representation that there is in the Bay Area, but I feel like that was not the intention of the writer. I think the writer was just like, I need female representation, and here we have a strong female tech lady, and she's so smart, and she's so good at the tech. and she's charismatic and kooky, and she does have character flaws. I like that I like that Sloan did not make her perfect. It bothered me, and I kept a very open mind, and I kept waiting for the female characters to redeem themselves later on in the book. And I was not at any point in the book like already like determined to hate this book because I didn't enjoy the female representation, because again, I wasn't sure if that was going to pay off later on, but it really didn't. And in general, I just didn't enjoy the story, so like that did not help either. When it came to the plot was just very blah. Like, it seemed really interesting. It seemed like it could be really, really cool. I liked the conspiracy, but then we ended up jumping around the country, and it was really hard to remember where we were and how we got there and who we were talking to, because we're introduced to like a million different characters all at once, like towards the end of the book. And I couldn't remember whose name was what, or why they were important, or what they did for the conspiracy, so I just kind of was like, this is too much at once. Like, you have way too many characters, way too many unnecessary characters in this book, especially because all the characters you thought were necessary up till the end of the book turn out to be completely unnecessary, like completely useless. I understand the journey of like trial and error and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, and that is one thing, but when you're building up to the climax of the story and then it turns out to be like, oh, this is what works and what doesn't, like that's not the journey we want to watch. We want to watch this is what works and what doesn't, and then the payoff at the end. So I thought the end was really disappointing and not enjoyable for me. I didn't understand how it was sci-fi, with the exception of maybe conspiracy. And I keep reiterating that just because I feel like if people pick this book up thinking sci-fi, they're going to be just as disappointed as I was. If I was told that this is more of a conspiracy book, I probably would have felt a little bit better about reading it, but it was just sold to me very differently than it is. So I just kind of want to make sure that that's out there. Beyond that, I don't really have much more to say. I feel like I was able to say everything I wanted to say without having to give any spoilers, so I'm not going to do a spoiler section of this book review because I feel like I don't really have much more to say about this book. I didn't hate it. I love the cover because all the books on these shelves are tactile, like you can feel them. They're like embeveled or whatever that word is, so that's pretty cool. I didn't absolutely hate it. I really didn't. And you know, it was easy to read. It's a quick read, so if you just need something really fast to read and you like conspiracy, then this would be a really good book for you to read. If you like reading about the Bay Area, this would also be a good book to read, despite the fact that I felt like all the description and building the Bay Area atmosphere was kind of unnecessary to the book, at least in the way that it was done, because all the stuff that was mentioned about the Bay Area and the companies in the Bay Area did not move the plot along. So the only thing that it did move the plot along with is needing a supercomputer and using a big company to use their supercomputers as the way to move the plot along. You could have just made up any random like company. You could have just made up a company and pretended that they had a giant supercomputer. But instead, you just went with one that does exist and had to go into describing the whole atmosphere of the company, which just didn't do much for the book, to be 100% honest. Yeah, I don't know. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. I think it's closer to 2.5 than 3 stars for me, but yeah. I hope you enjoyed this book review. If you did, definitely give it a like. If you want to see more book reviews from me, then definitely give me a subscribe. I super appreciate it. I'm gonna try to get out a few videos next week just because of all the videos I missed last week and this week because of the construction. There's still gonna be construction happening, so I kind of gotta play it by ear and wait till the early afternoon to figure out if I'm gonna actually record a book review, because I've noticed that if there is no hammering in the morning, there will not be any hammering throughout the day, which is nice to know. This construction is going on until mid-March, so I will be kind of off and on with posting my book reviews. I will record them whenever I can, and then I will post them shortly thereafter. So that is the game plan until mid-March, late March. It is what it is, and I'll still get the videos out as fast as I can. I'm gonna have to give up on the strike back video if I want, given the fact that I can't anticipate whether or not I'm gonna be able to record a video in the day. So with that in mind, I will be doing my small booktuber shoutouts this week. So I'm very excited because I'm gonna make a big old list because I found so many amazing booktubers to subscribe to and talk to, because one of the nice things about following smaller booktubers is that they actually respond to your comments, so it's really fun to talk to them. I have commented on the bigger YouTubers channels, and not only do I not get a reply from the actual people themselves because there's way too many comments to possibly entertain the idea that you could reply to them all, but nobody else in the comments either replies to my questions or, you know, my thoughts on the books. So I've really enjoyed being able to actually talk to people about the books that they either review or the books that I review. So thank you to those who have subscribed, and thank you to those who stick around and watch my videos. I super appreciate it. I really love doing this. I have read some really amazing books recently, like so good books I have not been this excited about in a long time. So stick around and look forward to those. I'm not going to announce what they are because I don't know what order I'm going to be posting these reviews in, or if I'm going to be able to record them half the time. So just know that there are some books I'm really excited about that I'm going to be posting videos for. But until then, I will definitely see you later. Bye!